In this masterclass to Wolverine, we're going to teach you what the difference between what the pros do versus what you're doing as Wolverine to help you become more of a menace in your games. Wolverine is one of the most impactful characters in Marvel Rivals. He's in the same kind of tier as Loki, Groot, and Emma, who have big impacts on the game and forcing the enemy team to completely change how they play the game or lose. And that makes him a very frustrating character to play into and a really great one to pick up if you want to get more wins under your belt. He's insanely strong this season, but he's been strong every season, and I think he's going to continue to be a major pickup that is good to know and worthwhile to play. I've now watched a lot of hours of top tier Wolverines in competitive play, in the top end ranks, in tournaments, all over the place, at all different tier levels, and I've learned what you need to know to master the Canadian Gremlin. This is not a beginner guide, so if you don't know Wolverine particularly well and you're not playing him regularly, first check out our complete guide to Wolverine, get into some games, and get a full grasp on how to play the character to your current level before you come here and figure out how to take it up to master level. So big thing that we see when Wolverine is played is he's played with his synergies. There's certain characters the Wolverine plays better with than others, and in the higher ranks when Wolverine shows up in a game, it's usually with one of these synergies because they make such a major difference. Now his team-ups are going to change over time, and we've seen new team-ups added and team-ups swap all the time. So I'm not going to talk a lot about those except for the Fastball Special. I believe this team up is always going to exist. It's a very integral part to Wolverine, and I don't really see them taking it away. The reason this team up is so important is that it gives you a free Feral Leap. The tossing from your tank gives you the full benefits of a Feral Leap without putting the ability on cooldown, and it's super strong. Now you have to coordinate with your tank for this one. You want them to be in an open position where they're not in danger before you begin it, and then you want them to be able to look up in the air and toss you into the sky. It's going to be tempting to throw you directly at the enemy team, but then you're coming at them right at their current angle, and they're going to blow you up and you're going to die. It's always going to be better to be thrown up high and to get more control as you fly about after the throw to kind of prey in on your target and be able to snatch somebody and wipe them out. I'll see the top end Wolverines like fly around in the sky, and they'll even use Feral Leap again to keep airborne flying about before they hone in on a target and snatch them away. Alright, so your next synergy is with Peni Parker. Peni's spider mines are a huge benefit to your Feral Leap. If you pick up an enemy and drop them down inside the range of the spider nest, the chances of that target being taken out jump drastically, as you're going to have so many of those mines to help you nuke the target down. I was watching so many of these players, and they were very deliberate to purposely wait at a useful angle that they could grab a target and bring them right to Peni. This also works well with any ally that has a hard CC ability, but Peni's just extra good because she not only has the webbing, but also the spider mines. If you can drop an enemy off in front of your allies, and then the allies can lock that target down so you can shred them, you're going to see more success. And you're definitely seeing when these players are playing them, they are gravitating towards Peni as an ally. And your third synergy is with Rocket Raccoon. The best Wolverines I see encourage their teammates to switch over to Rocket to make sure they have one in their games, and that's simply because of the respawn beacon. And more importantly, the fact that it gives out these packs. There's the orange packs that you can pick up to get your little bit of bonus health, but the important thing is the blue packs. If you don't know about these, when you pick one up, it gives you a super double jump, which means when you hit jump, if you're already in the air, you launch upwards and get a lot of extra height. The crazy thing about this is that it works during your Feral Leap. So if you're playing Wolverine and you've snatched onto a target while you have this jump boost and you hit your jump key, you'll launch way up in the air and you can fly for a long distance, dropping the target way far away from their team. You're going to see these pro Wolverines using this all the time to super isolate a target. Wolverine wins 1v1s against almost everybody right now, so picking up a target, flying them deep into your territory, and then shredding them where their allies cannot help them at all is just really impactful. While watching these matches, I will see a Wolverine standing at the respawn beacon waiting for this pack to go out, even though there's a fight happening beside them. Like they're around a corner just waiting to get their jump boost because the amount of impact and the boosted chance that they successfully get a kill when they have this jump pack on them is insanely high. It's almost a guaranteed kill if you get a Feral Leap on when you have this jump boost. I think everybody knows the main value of Wolverine is his Feral Leap. grabbing onto a target and pulling them away and then getting enhanced claw strikes about them. But really the difference is in how the pro players and top end players utilize this skill versus how it's used by the average player. So first up, you're going to want to go into your settings and you're going to want to change your sensitivity settings. This is going to be different for every person, what sensitivity level you want to get up to, and you might want to go and watch some learnings about this and what to change and how to change it to match your needs. But for Wolverine, I think you want a high sensitivity setting. I like to have it above 4.5, even into the 5s for the vertical and horizontal on PC. It gets a little bit more complicated with controller, and you're going to have to learn about the adjustments there. I'm not a master at changing your sensitivity on controller, and you're going to have to go reach out to somebody who is. But you're going to want to get this sensitive enough that you can easily spin your character around very quickly. Where you're going to see a difference here is if you Vicious Claw into the enemy and then begin a Feral Leap, and you're able to turn your camera very fast, you can whip around and dive that target deep into your own lines. And the difference is really insane based off your sensitivity. In your brain, you're going to want to hit your turn keys and you're going to want to try and turn around that way. And that's not how it works. It's all about your current reticle or mouse position. So you want to quickly spin around your view to face the other way as soon as you've grabbed a target. And then you want to be able to dive as deep as you possibly can with controlled movements to drop the target outside a line of sight of the enemy team. If all you're doing is grabbing targets and leaping maybe into the enemy team or in a straight line that they can still see the target, you're not going to see as much success with Feral Leap as if you can pick up targets and drop them around corners. Now, learning to do the snatch and grab is difficult. It is one of the hardest moves to land in the game, and it works really weird. Because this is a third-person shooter game, when you activate this, you move forward and slightly to the right towards your reticle. The angle at which your character moves while doing this is going to feel a little weird, and you're often going to miss Feral Leaps that you thought you should be able to get. So here's the trick that you need to learn. Touch the target. If your model is overlapping with the target in any way and you use Feral Leap, you'll successfully grab the target. So getting as close as you can before you activate the ability is vital. You can grab them from in front of you, from beside you, even from behind you, and they'll teleport in front of you during the leap if your character is touching theirs, and getting up close and personal is really, really important. You don't want to hit that Feral Leap early, and you want to get in as close as you can before you do so to make sure the snatch works. And you should, of course, be clawing while you're getting up that close to get a couple of extra early strikes in, upping your Berserker Rage, and getting their health a little bit lower before you begin the snatch. You really need to go into the practice range and practice this a lot. Players that do well on these types of characters spend way more time practicing than the average player does. Getting into the range and practicing out different scenarios and finding your limits in a controlled environment is how you're going to get a lot better at executing these abilities. And trying to constantly learn in active warzone level conflicts like you're getting in quick play or competitive, you're not going to be able to learn your limits. I recommend heading down into the basement of the practice zone and turning on the multiple fast moving targets mode. And then you're going to want to pick a specific target that you want to grab and find your way into the enemy lines, grab that target and get them as far as you can, as reliably as possible. Learning this skill is very important. I cannot stress that enough. The importance of successfully grabbing targets is massive. The fact that you can be this close to a target and activate Feral Leap and just go right over their heads is nuts, and it's really, really annoying to land. Your greatest chances of landing this ability is at the very start while touching the target, or if you do a controlled leap and try and intercept them mid-air, that's going to be your next highest chance of being successful, and your main way to deal with flyers, but it's not super reliable. Once you've gotten way better at the snatch and grab, next up is the slam dunk. On any map that has an open hole in it is your opportunity to perform a dunk. When you do your Feral Leap and grab a target, if you can land at the very edge of a hole where the enemy is still above the hole area, you're going to land and drop them down for a insta-kill. Insta-kills are way better than maybe kills, and getting a guaranteed kill on a target from doing one of these snatches is huge. You're going to start off when you do this often going with them off the edge, and that's actually kind of okay. If you successfully take a target off the map, especially if it's a priority target like a healer or a tank, you might have actually made the winning difference for your team in that scenario. As long as you're just not snatching a DPS and both of you jumping off, you probably made a decent call there. But as you practice more and get better, you're going to find the right line to be able to land, so you drop the enemy and you stay on the edge. Once you've learned this, you're going to find the ability to dominate on these maps and force the enemy team to give up entire areas of the zone that they don't feel like they can go in at all. This is really impactful on like Araco or on the Hydra base, but it can be impactful in a lot of situations to be able to just remove an enemy from the game. To get this a little bit more effectively is using that rocket team up. If you have the super jump, you have so much more time to plan out your landing as you've already clawed onto the target and you're able to go quite a bit further distance, getting some drops on some maps that you might not have been able to otherwise. So really encourage your players to pick up rocket if you're playing Wolverine. Now to get better at doing this, you need to spend more time waiting. Wolverine is a hunter and he specifically picks a target that he wants to take out. You need to be able to play in such a way that you are set up for success and you're planning out when an enemy is going to enter into your trap, you spring it and execute that target. You don't need to be in every fight, you don't need to be constantly clawing people, and making sure that you're in a position that you can get a good angle on somebody and wait for them to get a little bit too pushed up so that when you execute out on your move, you're going to be more successful. These top end players wait way more often, they don't go in engage in every combat, and they are much more likely to get a successful kill when they do execute upon it. In addition to that is escaping. If you failed your action, if you failed whatever you tried to execute on, you need to get out and you need to disengage. It's way too often that players in the lower ranks are going to try to make up for a mistake. They missed their feral leap, and so they try and turn around and land back on the targets so they can get their claw strikes on, or things like that, and they've put themselves in a vulnerable position. The better players get, the more often after failing to execute on a move, they just back off and they re-get their cooldowns, they get health, they do whatever they need to do to get back to a state of success. And you need to die less often, you need to put yourself in less risky situations, you need to have more control over what you're doing, making sure that you're fighting the enemy on your terms. So wait at choke points, wait in doorways, sneak around the enemy team, and learn the maps. There's a lot of secret paths in different maps where you can destroy a wall and sneak around targets that players aren't ready for at all. And once you've come out at that angle, you're going to be successful. Now, what are you doing when you don't have your Snatch available? Now that's where you're traversing the map. You're using your vicious claws to jump about and get onto different height angles. You're finding these holes in walls and ability to get to angles that the enemies are not ready for an enemy to come out from. As players get better, they're going to get better about checking these kinds of things, but you're always going to be able to be successful in surprising targets with this kind of action. So spend more time setting up. Now, if you can't set up and you need to fight, go in with your frontliners. Pop that Undying Animal to give you some big defensive ability, and then claw at the enemy team. You still do a lot of damage outside of your Feral Leap cooldown, and you can shred tank HP, making the healers panic, and making it more likely they're going to make mistakes throughout the fight. If somebody is pocketing you for healing, and you could possibly get a defensive like a mag bubble, you can be a total unit that just charges into the enemy team and tears them apart. Especially right now when Wolverine is really strong, but there might be balance changes that come in the future that won't make this as viable, but he's still just a really good brawler that can get up close and absorb a lot of damage while dealing a lot of damage, especially while your passive is up, and you need to be tracking that thing. A lot of players don't track the healing factor passive and don't change their playstyle around this passive being ready. Healing factor makes it so that when you run out of HP, you get a boost of bonus HP, and then you heal for how much bonus HP you still have after a delay. And that can allow you to play so much more riskfully and take more long shot opportunities when that ability is ready. And then when it's not ready, you need to be prepared to play a little bit differently. It also resets every time you get an assist or kill, so making sure you're swiping onto extra targets and participating a little bit more in the frontline scraps when you don't have the healing factor ready is going to get that ability back for you more often. I see top end Wolverines get this thing to proc all the time. It's up almost double the amount of time that it's up for the regular player. So they're able to get those assists more often and get their healing factor back regularly. Proper usage of Undying Animal helps with this, and making sure that you're popping it at any time that there's going to be some focus in on you so you can reduce the incoming damage, or using it as an escape ability after your healing factor is popped to make sure you retain that bonus health and are able to get the heal once you get out of line of sight. Don't be afraid to use either your Vicious Claws or your Feral Leap to just disengage if you're in a dangerous situation. You really need to die less, and I want to keep hammering that into you guys. You need to die less, and it's not your healer's fault that you're dying, it's mistakes that you're making. Making less mistakes is huge, and when you've realized you've made a mistake, figuring out how to get yourself to safety is also huge. If you get taken off the board, it's much more likely that your enemy is going to have a successful push, where if you disengage and are able to grab a health pack or get to your healers and get healed back up, your team still has the strong foundation it needs to be successful. Another good thing that Wolverine can do is goad enemies into 1v1s. If your backline is dead or you're in a situation where you've been separated from your team, if you can poke out and try and get one player to come and try and deal with you, you want isolated players. And if you can force players to isolate themselves into a fight with you, you're probably going to win it. With the exception of maybe Magic, who I think can take you out, you should be able to 1v1 pretty much any other character played at the same level that you're at. But when you're doing this, make sure to play around health packs. Make sure that you can quickly dash and get yourself a bit of healing. Any healing you can give yourself that your healers don't need to do is massive in this game, and good Wolverine players are regularly bouncing between health packs to get themselves topped up while they continue to do their assault on the enemy team. You need to break away from the blame others mindset for when things are going wrong and for when you die in the fight. It's almost always going to be a death that was caused by something you didn't quite do right. A miscalculation, a misplay, and things like that are what actually result in deaths most of the time. If your healers weren't able to keep you up, were you defending your healers? Were they in trouble? Were you in line of sight? Did you engage into too many enemies while there wasn't somebody else to take the focus? There's all sorts of things that you're doing wrong in that situation. Wolverine's actually pretty good at protecting the back line. So if you're dealing with a Spider-Man or a Black Panther that is coming in and harassing your backliners, a Feral Leap onto one of those guys when they try to come in will totally mess them up. And your wide hitbox of your claw attacks, you can just hang out near your strategist clawing when those players are trying to come in and do their work, and you're going to deal damage to them, and you're going to mess up their plays. Now, healer ultimates is always something that you have to worry about, and Wolverine has a really great way to be able to deal with these. With both Feral Leap as well as his ultimate, he's able to get targets out of a safe healing area. So when you're dealing with a healing ult like Invisible Woman's or Cloak and Dagger, it's very, very valuable to identify the person who controls the ultimate, Feral Leap them out of range, and kill them outside of the range of the healing, so when they die, the healing sphere goes away. Or if you're dealing with someone like Rocket, whose healing sphere doesn't go away, or Luna, who you can't CC, you'll be grabbing a different priority target and getting them out of range of the healing effect. Sometimes these pro Wolverines are even going to Feral Leap someone out, land them outside of the range, and then ult them even further away, so they're a mile away from the healing, and then mop them out outside of range. Getting a lot better at what to do inside of a healing ultimate scenario is very valuable. You don't want to just be standing there swiping claws inside a healing ult. You're not really doing anything, and you're mostly just charging up other people's ultimates. You want to either wait outside of the field and let the field end before you go in and do your action, or you need to be trying to isolate priority targets out of the healing effect. So let's talk about counters, because you need to know what your counters are, as well as how to deal with those things. First up is flyers. Flyers are a pain in the butt for Wolverine to deal with. Yes, you can Feral Leap and grab them, and it's super cool when you do. But Feral Leap is also one of the hardest moves to land in the game. We talked about that before. It's really hard to land it, it's really hard to execute on it, and you only got that one shot on a 20-something second cooldown. If you miss, if they're too high up, if something goes wrong and you don't get them, there's now nothing you can do about that flyer, and they're going to be able to just hammer into you for a really long time. You're going to get chased down by Ultrons on Wolverine if you aren't able to get yourself under cover, and if you don't have an ally that can deal with flyers. If your team is lacking hit scan or any kind of deflying ability, you're going to want to hop off Wolverine. Next up, anybody with hard CC is a problem. That does mean Peni Parker, Wolverine, Winter Soldier, even sometimes Hela or Phoenix, depending how good they are. They're able to shut you down with a stun before your Feral Leap is able to execute on. And once you get hard CC'd, you're pretty easy to go down. In that Wolverine on Wolverine matchup, the first Wolverine to use Feral Leap usually loses the fight. It's all about patience and making sure that you can use your leap at the right time. When you're playing into these CC style characters, you need to be prepared to engage after they've initiated their CC on somebody else. That's again about the patience and waiting. Watch the players that you're dealing with and make sure they don't have the tools in their kit to be able to deal with you when you come in. Invisible Woman is probably your biggest counter. When played well, she absolutely shuts you down. She'll hold her force push pull ability until you vicious claw in for a feral leap, and then she'll be able to pull you when you try to leap, shutting you down and putting you in an extremely vulnerable position. She can also then put down a slow field that's going to make it really hard for you to get out, and you're going to get shut down. Top end Wolverines are always waiting for Invisible Woman to use her push or pull before they engage in any way. And you need to be mindful of where her slow field is at and making sure not to dash through that, because that'll also slow you down. The thing can be a little bit rough because his Yancey Street charge can make it so that you can't use your Vicious Claw and you can't use your Feral Leap if you get yourself caught in that area. He also can't be gripped away by you, so you can't do any of your snatching grabs or dunks on him, but he is a pretty big vulnerable target with no kind of self-defense, so once you have jumped in on him and begin clawing him, he's a pretty reliable way to get your Berserker Rage passive built up, and he doesn't have a lot of threats that he can put upon you. You're gonna kill him faster than he can kill you, so he's not a major counter. For Penny, the big thing is don't worry about her Spider Mines. Pop a dying animal, vicious charge in quickly, and snatch her away with a Feral Leap. She has no ability to be able to stop your Feral Leap unless you come in right in front of her and she can CC you, and you should be able to quickly grab her out and put her in a vulnerable position. Her mobility sucks, she doesn't have any block, and she should get shredded quite quickly anytime you're able to Feral Leap Penny out of her group. So she's not a very big counter, and you'd rather have a Penny on your team than have her banned. Emma is going to be your biggest problem on the front lines. If she successfully chokeslams you, you're dead. So what you're doing is you're baiting out her diamond form. You're trying to engage with her and putting out claw strikes until she goes diamond. Then you're quickly vicious clawing away and getting yourself to safety until the diamond mode ends. Once you visibly see diamond mode is over, that's when you're going to begin planning to give a snatch and grab on her. You've now got a decent window of time to jump onto her, grab her, and jump her to your allies, and there's not a lot in her kit that she can do once diamond form is on cooldown to be able to stop you. But you definitely have to be more patient. She will shut you down really easily if you become predictable. I hope with all this, you've got a better understanding of how to play Wolverine. He's complicated, but I've implemented a bunch of these things that I've seen, and my Wolverine win rate has skyrocketed. I'm way better at him, and I'm way better about being patient and careful with my actions. The big thing I'm still working on is being a little bit better about feral leaping enemies. I still miss way too often, but that's something that you just gotta practice some more. I hope this guide helped you out. I'm Zesty Fresh with Salaza Games, and we'll catch you guys next time.